Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last Friday in February 2021. Whew. Glad to get out of this month and get into some warmer temps, hopefully, anyhow. But hey, we're going to take a quick look at Mark, the 8th chapter, verses 31 and to the end of that chapter. Again, it's picking up where we left off yesterday. Jesus' prediction of his coming arrest, his trial, his death, and his resurrection. It's important to remember that just before this, Jesus had to ask the disciples, "Who do you say that I am?" And they gave all these different names. And at the end, it was Peter who said, "I know who you are. You're the Messiah." The Messiah. And Jesus said, "Shh, don't say that to anyone. Don't say a word about it." Why is it? Because as we're going to see, Jesus, as we saw yesterday, Jesus preferred to be called the Son of Man, not the Messiah, which has the political overtones to it, where like he wants to take over stuff. No, Son of Man has more the religious portion that people were looking for in that day. Yeah, they were looking for a Messiah, a lot of them, but a lot of them were looking for specifically the Son of Man, and we talked about that yesterday. But let's talk more about what exactly all this entailed. It's interesting that the very first part of this, when Jesus talked about having to be arrested and be rejected and be killed, it's Peter who looks at Jesus and he rebukes Jesus. Now, that word rebuke is only used in the Gospel of Mark when you're telling somebody or something to shut up. It's usually used in casting out demons, right? There's Peter. He's telling Jesus to shut up. Basically, don't say that. We don't want to hear that. You're a little off base, Jesus. You're a good guy. You've got some good things to say and do, but we don't want to hear this talk about dying. And Jesus rebukes him and looks him right in the eye, and he says, "Get behind me, Satan. Get behind me, Satan." Ooh, that's kind of like, ouch, ouch. But don't forget, the word Satan means adversary, anybody who's against me. Yes, Peter, you're playing the role of Satan right now because you're not looking out for the things of God. You're looking out for your own welfare, your own benefit. You're still hung up on this Messiah concept. You got to change. And then he goes on and he starts talking about discipleship and what that means to be a disciple of Jesus. And at the very end, he says, "In this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed." That is, if anyone's ashamed of Jesus, the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in glory. That's where Jesus hits the nail on the head. I'm not the Messiah. I am the Son of Man, as we talked about yesterday. And if you don't remember, go back and find that video. That's all about God appointing someone very, very special. And by this time, that very special one was going to put all things right between God and the rest of the world in an apocalyptic type of fashion. Yes, that this would be it. Finally, God would have this world straightened out. All right, and that was the role of the Son of Man. But, this call to discipleship, we have to remember this Gospel of Mark was written for a people who had just lived through a huge insurrection in Jerusalem that had been squashed by the Romans in 66 AD, and by 70 AD, in which there were still little fires that the Romans had to keep coming back and snuffing out, they finally said, enough is enough. And they marched in and they leveled the temple. They said, if you guys aren't going to behave, we're just going to just blow you right out of town. And that's what they did. And literally, the Jews had to run for their lives. Now, just as an aside, that ended up kind of being a blessing in disguise, because it wasn't just the Jewish people who were true to their Old Testament roots that had to run for their lives. It was also the Jewish people who were true to their Old Testament roots, but also now were followers of Jesus. They had to run for their lives as well. So, by the time the Apostle Paul comes along, all right, and he starts doing some of his stuff, this is before the Gospel of Mark is even written, the word about Jesus has really gotten out all over, not all over completely, but over a good chunk of the Roman Empire. Wherever the Jews ran, they took their faith with them. So it's kind of a neat thing. But Jesus talks about how it's going to be tough. It's not going to be an easy road, especially with all this political turmoil that's going on, that the people whose faith in God and politics and all that were so intricately intertwined, and it was tough to separate one from the other. Yeah, talk about mixing religion and politics. That's the life of the Jewish people. In fact, it's our lives as well. Who we are deep down inside of us as people reflects on a lot of our views of politics around us as well. So let's not kid ourselves. We're no different as they were back then. But these words of Jesus, what will it profit anyone to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? What can they give in return for their life? Jesus said it's all about denying yourself, not looking out for number one, not trying to put yourself at the top, not trying to be king of the world, not playing king of the hill like little kids do, but rather it's all about putting others first. And denying yourself doesn't mean to become a doormat. It means I put the interests of others ahead of myself. Well, that's just barely touching on this. There's a whole lot more that's going on in this passage. It's an important passage to know. It is a turning point in the Gospel of Mark, and now we'll be moving toward the cross. A slow march. Well, not by Mark's standards. Mark is always immediately, and as they were doing this, and then again, he really pushes it along, but it is going to be a deliberate march, maybe that's a better word, toward the cross, in which Jesus starts talking more and more about himself. And the gospel writer Mark does the same, using a lot of images from the prophet Isaiah, the suffering servant of the Lord. God's blessings be with you. Enjoy this day. And go there and read that passage, Mark chapter 8, verses 31 to the end. It's not all that long, 9 verses long. And it's a good one, and it's one that really does set the tone for the rest of this Lenten season as we move closer and closer to Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Sunday, the day of resurrection. Blessings be with you.